সৌরভের কি খবর? Everyone plus mute themselves. Anand, please mute yourself. So basically, this was our network administration using Unix. So basically, we will be looking into how the network is administered using the Unix operating system. But first, let us look into the Unix operating system from a new paradigm. I already know I already know that you have learnt about this operating system a little bit in your previous classes. So we will just try to just more focus in this lecture or in this what you can say in this topic of yours. We will focus much more on the Unix operating systems and in and outs of the operating system and what are the basically how to do network administration using Unix operating system. So the Unix operating system is a set of programs that act as a link between the computer and user. Unix was originally developed in 1969 by a group of AT&T employees, Ken Thompson, Dennis Ritchie, Douglas McCoy, and Joe Asana at Bell Labs. Okay, so Unix was basically at the time when there was no operating system. So the actually basically needed something to develop. So the hardware was there, the operating system was basically what you can say. The operating systems were there, but they were too much costly for them because they were private operating systems, right? They were paid operating systems. But Unix was developed using the concept that it was an open source software by the group of these three employees, that is Ken Thompson, Dennis Ritchie, Douglas McCoy, and John Osana, but four employees. So there are various kinds of Unix variants that are available in market. So everyone, so Unix is very means even if you are a coder, you can develop a new version of Unix and you can sell in the market, right? The original Unix remains the core. Your original Unix remains same, but you can develop different type of variants of it. So there are various kinds of Unix variants available in the market. There is a Solaris, AIX, HP Unix, BSD, and Linux is also a favor of the Unix, which is freely available, right? But the most commonly used of a Unix operating system that you can find today is basically the Ubuntu. So the one of the many features or many advantages of Unix operating system is that several people can use Unix computer at the same time. Hence, Unix is called a multi-user system. Okay, so basically it happens that you can, if there is a Unix system in there, so you can log in to the Unix operating system from any other computing system. And it allows you to work. So basically that's why it's called basically a Unix multi-user system. So an user can also run multiple programs at the same time, and hence it is a multitasking system. So as you know, that different users can log into the Unix operating system, and they can also run different multiple programs such as compiler, word processors, a C programming language, everything they can do on a single, basically on a single Unix operating system. So it allows multiple users to log in, and it allows also multi-programming environment where a user can run multiple programs in the same operating system. ঠিক আছে? So what is that? So the thing is that we have to understand what is the architecture of Unix. So what is the architecture of Unix? So Unix is an operating system, as you know. So whenever we are talking about operating system, so Unix provides this Unix says that there is a hard disk. So any operating system has a hardware, okay, and then on above the system there is a the operating system lies, and then runs the application programs, right? So in here, what it does, the users communicate with the kernel through a user program known as shell. So there is a basically now you have the operating system in here represents the kernel, And how do the users interact with the kernel? One second. And how do the users connect with this? How do the users connect with the operating system or connect with the Unix architectures or with the Unix operating system? It is through the shell. Okay. The shell is a command line interpreter. It translates the commands entered by the user and converts them into a language that is understood by the kernel. So the shell is just lies above the operating system, and the user enters the command through the shell, and the shell converts those commands into language that is understood by the kernel. That is in the machine language, right? That is understood by the kernel. That is how the Unix architecture works. We can see an image now in here. There lies the hardware. Okay, this is the hardware. On this, the Unix kernel lies, and this white part is called the shell. And these are this command. You can see different blocks are there. So these are called the commands, right? And on above them you can develop different kinds of application programs that can be they also use the shell through which they can access the kernel. That is how the Unix architecture looks like. So what is the kernel? So the kernel is the heart of the operating system. It interacts with the hardware and most of the tasks such as memory management, task scheduling, and file management. So I am just going a little bit faster because already you have studied them in your operating system class. So what is the kernel? It is the heart of the operating system. So basically it is basically interacts with the hardware, and different kinds of tasks such as memory management, task scheduling, and file management are done through the kernel. There are some other functions performed by the kernel Unix systems are, that is managing the machine's memory and allocating it to each process and decide their priorities. Actually, one second. Let me just one second. I'll just take a 1 minute break.
Okay, sir.
Sorry. So kernel is the heart of the operating system. So basically, anything that is interacting with this kernel, we can say is the heart, which is interacting with the hardware, and we are connecting the kernel through the shell, right? So it does all the low-level tasks of the operating system, such as interacting with the hardware, memory management, task scheduling, and the file management. So some of the functions that are performed by the kernel in Unix systems are managing the machine's memory and allocating it to each process that you have already know. Scheduling the work done by the CPU so the works of each process is carried out efficiently as possible. You know about the scheduling algorithms which we studied in the operating system classes. Okay. So some of the other tasks of the Unix operating systems are it organizes the transfer of data from one part of the machine to another. It accepts instruction from Unix shell and carrying them out, and enforcing the access permissions that are enforced on the file system. Right. So shell is the utility that processes your request. When you type the command in your terminal, the shell interprets the command and calls the program you want. So it's basically nothing. It's a utility, right? So you can access the shell of the Unix operating system using the terminal. Okay. So what it does, it takes a command from you, right? It interprets the command, means it converts the command into machine code or the functions that the operating system has and calls the program that you want. So all the commands are basically a small bits of programs. So basically it calls all the programs that we want. The cell uses the single S, so the cell uses standard syntax for all commands. C cell also, so there are different kinds of cells are there. That is C cell is there, bone cell is there, corn cell is there, and so these are basically different available in most of the Unix variants. So you can use any of these Unix cell commands available in the system, and you can switch between different Unix cells once you have found they are available. So these are the commands that are available. That is EC cell, corn cell, bone cell, bash, bone cell, and C cell. You can access any of these cells to interact with the Unix operating system. So in here, now we come across, so there are different kinds of commands. You have already used them in your previous class. So which you can make use of with your different, that is copy, move, cat, grep. So these are the some of the few examples of the commands and utilities. And there are over 250 standard commands plus numerous others provided in the third-party software. So if you are developed in variant of Unix, there are multiple programs that are there or commands there that you can use. All commands, there are various options are there per command. Okay. Now, if you have any questions, please ask. No questions? So we can continue.
No, sir.
No,
Yes.
sir.
Okay. So we are talking about files and directories. Okay. Now, how the Unix files and directories are arranged? Okay. So all the data of Unix is organized into files, and all files are organized into directories. Okay. So any file you write, any music file also you write, they are organized into files, right? And these files are organized into directories. You keep them under directories. And the directories are basically, they are hierarchical in nature. So they are further organized into tree-like structure or hierarchical structure called the file system. One system. So what are the functions of Unix? One of the function of Unix is security. Oh, 1 second. Okay. So what are the functions that are provided by Unix? One is operating system. So the security is provided by the user ID and password. So the operating system uses for the password protection to protect the user data and similar other techniques. It also prevents unauthorized access to programs and user data. That is the one of the functions of Unix. Second, control over system performance. It monitors the overall system health to improve the performance. Okay. Records the response times between service request and system response to have complete view of the system health. So these are the system provides. So you can also see these things are also available in Windows. So if you are basically what you can do, if you start the task manager, so the task manager also does all these kinds of things. So this can help further improve performance by providing important information needed to troubleshoot problems. So what is the job accounting? Operating system keeps track of time and resources used by various tasks and users. This information can be used to track resource usage for a particular user or group of users. So the Unix operating system keeps a track of all the jobs that are okay. Help the operating system to keep a track of the resource users by different groups of users or by single user. Also, the operating system provides the error detecting aids. Okay, so if there is any system, any program is working in a different way, so or it is basically malfunctioning, any system is malfunctioning, so that is also this facility of knowledge, or this knowledge is also provided by the Unix operating system. So coordination between other software and users. So what it does, so there are software, there are application softwares there, like interpreters, compilers, assemblers, and there are various softwares are available. Okay, so it coordinates the softwares and users. So users, these softwares, that is compiler, assemblers, other softwares are allocated to particular users. Okay, so it coordinates this activity. Memory management. The operating system manages the primary memory or the main memory. Okay, so job allocation and all those things are done by the operating system using the main memory. So what is the main memory? It is made up of large array of bytes of word, where each byte or word is assigned to certain address. So it's a fast storage device, and it is directly accessed by the CPU. For a program to be executed, it should be first loaded in the main memory. So what is processor environment? Processor environment, in a multi-programming environment, the OS decides the order in which processes have access to the processor. So basically the scheduling algorithm, the scheduling of the processes or to the processor are basically done by the operating system. So this is also called process scheduling, and operating system performs the following activities for the processor management. So different kinds of activities are done for the process scheduling. 8. The device management. So the OS manages the device communication by their respective drivers. It performs the following activities for device management: keep tracks of all devices connected to the system and designates the program responsible for every device, known as the input-output controller. What is in there? If there are multiple devices are attached to the system, there are hard disks is attached, there is a this is keyboard is attached, the mouse is attached to the system. Okay. So for this, managing all these devices and which devices are connected to the system, so there is a separate controller for them. So the keyboard controller controls the keyboard, the mouse controller controls the mouse. So in this way, the device management happens. Okay, now file system. So you already know that the file system is organized into directories for efficient, for easy navigation and usage. So everything is organized into directories, and directories may contain other directories and other files. So the operating system carries out the following file management activities. It keeps tracks where the information is stored, where user access settings and status of every file and more. So these facilities are collectively known as the file system. So what is the Unix file system? It's a logical method of organizing and storing large amount of information in a way that makes it easy to manage. Okay. So basically, when you're talking about a Unix file system, it's basically nothing. It's a logical method of organizing and storing large amount of information in a way that it makes it easy to manage, right? So it basically arranges them in a fashion that helps them to basically makes users easy to manage the system, right? A file is the smallest unit of information, right? An Unix file system has several important features. All data in Unix is organized into files. So any kind of data you have, it is actually a file. All files are organized into directories. So files are organized into directories, and directories are organized into hierarchical fashion or tree-like fashion that we have discussed earlier. So you see, this is the file system is initially the root. Roots can be directories or it can be file systems. Directories and file systems sometimes are interchangeable, right? And within these directories and file systems, these are the basically different directories or file systems exist. That is bin, dev. Bin is for binaries, dev is for devices, etc. for some storing some different devices, library, user, temp, var, home. So these are the different kinds of directories or file systems that you find within the Unix operating system. But everything starts with the root. So directories in files and their description is slash. So basically, this is the root. Slash describes the root. So if you do cd slash, you directly go to the root of the Unix file system. And then is the binary. So slash bin is the binaries, and it contains certain fundamental utilities such as ls, list, or cp command, which are generally needed by all the users. Boot slash boot. It contains all the files that are required for successful booting of the operating system. There is another called device or slash dev. So it contains the file information or the basically device controller information of all the devices. Slash etc contains the configuration files and system database. Very important directory. You should never touch this directory without it. Means if you require only then you touch this directory. Okay. So these are dangerous maintenance utilities such as init, but these are typically moved to SBIN or elsewhere. Another important directory is the home directory, where it is different users are basically stayed in the home. So you have to create different, if you want to create supposedly sort of the user, or you have to create this what you can say about Chonchita user, or you can say Pratik user. So you have to create different users for different persons, and you can have to create them in the home directory. Okay. Slash lib, it contains all the libraries and some critical files such as kernel modules and device drivers. Slash media is all the removable devices such as USB sticks and media players. Mount, so slash mount, it stands for mounts and contains file system mount points. So these are used, for example, if the system uses multiple hard disks or hard disk partitions. Right. So if you have used multiple, if you are using a basically a hard disk, so you have to mount it, right? You have to mount that mount that hard disk. Slash procs. So procs is a virtual file system showing information about the processes as files. You know, root is about basically the home user, home directory of the super user, or is the system administrator. So everyone, if you control the root, you control everything. So it is the initial file system, and hence not in home. So from the root, everything starts. Okay. So any maintenance, if you require, and anything if you require, any failure, that is you have to go to the root to resolve it. So slash temp is the place for temporary file. Okay, and it any temporary directory or anything, it has to be stored in there. Okay, so any temporary file, supposedly you downloaded any temporary file in here, so it gets stored in here. So root is basically for the system administrator. So any malfunction, that is handled by the root, and temp is for the temporary files. So any temporary information is stored in the temp directory, you have to remove it to delete it. It's similar to the Windows temporary folder. And user is the original directory. It holds the user home directories if the user changed. Okay. So if you are defining now, if you want to classify the Unix file system, there are multiple types of, so the file systems can be classified into ordinary files. It can be classified into directories, special files, pipes, sockets, and symbolic links. So we will go to them one by one. So what is an ordinary file? An ordinary file is a file on the system that contains data, text, or program instructions. So it is used to store information such as some text written or an image that has been drawn. This is a type of file we usually work with. So basically, it is it always looking at a slash under directory file, do not contain file. So basically, ls minus l, if you are putting this, so this one is defines the ordinary file. So this this construction in slash minus l. So in the long format output, this type of file is specified minus. So after minus, and if you put this l, okay. So this actually contains all the information. So all the specific codes that are required to be run from this one. So that's why it is used. It does not contain other files. Okay. So ls minus l. So this is an ordinary file. I mean, this is command. Okay. But this command's data or this command's code is stored in the file that is ordinary. Okay. So these are basically a common file that is used. So directories store both special and ordinary files. So if you are a Windows or Mac OS users, so Unix directories are equivalent to folder, and a directory file contains the entry for every file and subdirectory that it houses. So if there are 10 files in the directory, there will be 10 entries for the directory. Okay. So So directories and files are used interchangeably in here. So it contains an entry for every file and subdirectory. So directory just keeps an tab on every files in the system, and every file and subdirectory also the information is kept in the directory. So directory refers to the metadata information that is there. So if there are 10 files in the directory, there will be 10 entries in the directory. So each entry has two components, the file name and the unique identification number for the file or directory. আচ্ছা এখন পর্যন্ত কোনো কোশ্চেন আছে তোমাদের? Any questions?
No, sir. ঠিক আছে।
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay.
No.
So what are the special files in here? So these are represent the special physical device such as printer, tape drive, terminal, or I/O operations, right? So devices or special files are used for device input/output on Unix and Linux systems. They appear in a file system just like an ordinary file or a directory. So if you look into the Unix operating system, if you load an basically USB port or pen drive, you will see that a file in the name of your pen drive appears. So that is a special file which represents the particular real physical device that you have. So on Unix systems, there are two flavors of special files for each device: character special and look special files. When a character special file is used for device input data is transferred one character at a time. Okay. So for these special files, so basically there are character special files and block special files. Character special files, what it does, it transfers data one character at a time. Okay. Another is the block. So it transfers large fixed size blocks at a time. So if you want to transfer information from one file to another, so basically you can use the character or you can use the block special file. Then there is the pipes. So it allows to link commands together using a pipe. So it's basically the pipes hold the temporary defense. So if you now in one command you want to basically do some operations on a data. Okay. And what does the pipe do? It acts as a temporary file to hold temporary data. It only exists to hold data from one command until it is read by another. So if you want to link two commands, right? In one command is reading the file, another command is writing the file. So the pipe keeps the temporary information in between. So the output or result of the first command sequence is used as the input to the second command sequence. To make a pipe, put a vertical bar on the command line between two commands. So supposedly now this is the command that is there. So who, when you put who, this data is taken and it is stored in this file, that is that pipe. And this pipe information is again put into WC minus L, right? So there are two commands, who and WC minus L, right? From who does a particular work, the information is sent to this pipe, and the pipe information is transferred to WC minus L, or word count, we can say. In the long format output, ls minus L named pipes are marked by P symbol. So for a long character symbol, you can use the P symbol. So this is very important, and sockets will be using, because you will be using network administration using UNIX. So sockets is basically a special file which allows advanced inter-process communication. So basically every process has a socket, right? Every process has a socket information. So basically the information flow from process to process is done using socket. So the process may or may not exist in the same system. It may exist in a different system also. So Unix socket is used as a client-server application program. It is a stream of data very similar to the network stream, but all transactions are local to the file system. In the long output, ls-l Unix systems are marked by S symbol, right? So sockets are basically marked by S symbol. Then there is the symbolic link. Symbolic link is for referencing some other file of the file system, right? So if you want to refer to some other file within the command, you can use the symbolic link. It is also known as the soft link. It contains text from the path to the file it references, right? So it contains the information of the text from the path, okay, to the file it references. So basically, if you are taking a file and you are going to the Unix operating system, if you right click it, so a symbolic link will appear that represents the file. The symbolic link will appear to have its own name, but when you try to reading and writing this file, it will instead reference these operations to the file it points to. Right. So it is basically, it has its own name, but if you are trying to read and write from this file, so it will reference this operand to the file. If you delete the soft link install, the data file would still be there. If you delete the source file or move it to direction, the symbolic file will not function properly. So supposedly the symbolic links represents the path to a file. So if you are basically, if you are copying one file from another file, right? So supposedly you are using a symbolic link or a path link, right? So from file source to file destination. But if you remove the destination file to some other folder, you cannot send the information to that file. In that case, it will give you an error. So file is represented by the path. So that is always using, sometimes using the terminal. Okay. So any questions you have?
No, sir.
এই সবাই বুঝতে পেরেছিস?
হ্যাঁ স্যার।
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
স্যার সিম্বলিক লিঙ্কটা বুঝিনি
আচ্ছা
স্যার। পাইপ কি ক্যাশের মতো কাজ করে?
দাঁড়া, আচ্ছা আমি তোদের এটাতেই বুঝিয়ে দিই। একটা কমান্ড আছে তো, দেখতে পাচ্ছিস?
ইয়েস স্যার।
এটা হচ্ছে কপি। আচ্ছা আচ্ছা আমি একটা ডেটাকে অন্য একটা জায়গায় মুভ করব, ঠিক আছে? বা একটা ডেটাকে কপি করে দাঁড়াচ্ছে সেকেন্ড রেখে নিই। আচ্ছা এটা ইউনিক্সে খুব ভালো করে করা যায়, এক সেকেন্ড দাঁড়া। আচ্ছা আমি ডি ড্রাইভে আছি তো, এখানে দুটো ফাইল নেম নিলাম, ঠিক আছে? দুটো হলো না, দাঁড়া, নিউ টেক্সট, এটা নামলাম আমি এ, ঠিক আছে? এর ভেতরে আমি লিখলাম যাই হোক কিছু একটা লিখলাম এস এ, অল দোজ থিংস লিখলাম, ঠিক আছে? এটাকে সেভ করলাম, ঠিক আছে? আর আমি নিউ ফোল্ডার করে এখানে একটা নাম দিচ্ছি আমি বিসিএ ক্লাস। বাবা কত স্লো, ঠিক আছে? এখানে এটা আমি নাম দিলাম, সরি আগেন, এটা নাম দিলাম আমি বি, ঠিক আছে? এটার মধ্যে কিছু নেই, ঠিক আছে? এর ভেতরে ডেটা আছে। এবার আমি কি করব, কমান্ড প্রম্পটে গেলাম, এবার আমাকে কপি, ঠিক আছে? এটা হচ্ছে এ ডট টিএক্সটি, ঠিক আছে। এবার আমি কোথায় কপি করবো এটাকে? ডি ড্রাইভে কি আছে ডট টিএক্সটি, ডি ড্রাইভে কি আছে দাঁড়া, ডিসি আছে তাই তো, ডি ডট টিএক্সটি, ঠিক আছে, বুঝতে পারলি? দেখছিস তো? আই সৌরভ,
ইয়েস স্যার। হ্যাঁ স্যার।
এবার দেখ এইটা হচ্ছে গিয়ে সিম্বলিক লিঙ্ক টু বি, ঠিক আছে, এটাকে সিম্বলিক লিঙ্ক বলবো দিয়ে। এটা বি কিন্তু ফাইলটা অ্যাকচুয়ালি না, কিন্তু ইট ইজ এ সিম্বলিক লিঙ্ক। এবার আমি এন্টার মারলাম, আমি করব ইয়েস, ঠিক আছে। এবার দেখ বিসি এর মধ্যে বিটাকে খুলবো, দেখ ওটার মধ্যে এর ডেটাটা কপি হয়ে গেছে, বুঝতে পারলি? তো ইউনিক্সেও এরকম কমান্ড পাওয়া যায় টু কপি ইনফরমেশন ফ্রম ওয়ান ফাইল টু আনাদার। কিন্তু আমি যদি বিটাকে অন্য জায়গায় মুভ করে দিই তাহলে কিন্তু এটা অতইভাবে কাজ, মানে এখানে হয়তো একটা নতুন ফাইল ক্রিয়েট হয়ে যাবে, কিন্তু ইউনিক্সে এটা হবে না, ঠিক আছে, বুঝতে পারলি?
ইয়েস স্যার।
So file is represented by the symbolic link. In this case, the path represents the file. Understood everyone?
Yes, sir.
ইয়েস স্যার।
Yes, sir.
আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে, এবার তোরা চ্যাট বক্সে তোদের রোল নাম্বার গুলো দিয়ে দে, যারা যারা আছে
রোল নাম্বার স্যার।
তুই নামগুলো দে বাবা, ভালো লাগছে না। সবাই লিখেছিস তো? আচ্ছা সৌরভ,
Yes,
1
sir.
2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, ঠিক আছে, ঠিক আছে, যা তো এটা প্র্যাকটিস করিস, ঠিক আছে।
ওকে স্যার। স্যার ফাইলটা সেন্ড করে দিন।
হ্যাঁ প্র্যাকটিস কর এখন, করবি।